The grand hall of the Imperial Crown blazed like a palace. The light from the crystal chandeliers reflected off champagne glasses, perfectly tailored suit lapels, and sweeping satin gowns. The sound of cellos and violins intertwined, mingling with the faint, shallow laughter of the upper class. At the table of honor, Alexander Kane, his hair silver as platinum, clad in a black tuxedo that hugged his tall frame, lifted a crystal glass, his gaze sweeping over each guest's face. He smiled politely, but his eyes were only a mask. Then, he saw the girl. At the far end of the hall, hidden behind a shimmering gold curtain, a small wheelchair sat still. A dark-skinned girl, about 9 years old, wore a wrinkled cream dress. Her braided hair hung loose, her hands resting on her lap, her eyes fixed on the floor. No one stood near her, no one spoke to her, no one noticed. The veins in Alex's temple throbbed. He gripped the champagne glass until a sharp crack split the air. The crystal shattered in his hand, jagged edges slicing into his skin, red blood mingling with the pale gold of the drink, dripping onto the pristine white tablecloth. The music faltered mid-note. The instruments fell silent. All laughter died. Alex shot to his feet. His voice was deep, yet it rang like an execution order. Who left the girl sitting there alone? No one answered. Only a few sidelong glances, a few hands hastily setting down glasses. He pointed straight ahead, his voice rising to a roar, each word slicing through the air like a blade. Every one of you saw her, and you let it happen. The servers, the organizers, and my wife. The words "my wife" made Victoria the bride in a pristine white gown adorned with Swarovski crystals jerk her head around. Her red-painted lips parted slightly. "Alexander, calm down. This is not the time." "Not the time?" He cut her off, holding up his bloodied hand toward her. "You told people to stay away from her. You called her a burden, a charity project that ruined your perfect picture. Were you about to say, 'She's not'?" Victoria's face went pale. She bit her lip. Then the words shot out like the tip of a knife. "She's not your real daughter. She's—" "Enough." Alex's voice dropped, trembling with fury. "You, who spent 30,000 pounds on flowers no one will remember, refused to let her sit near the head table because she didn't match the color scheme. Take off that white dress. You don't deserve to wear it." A collective gasp swept through the hall. No one dared to breathe. Alex turned his back on Victoria as if she no longer existed. His eyes swept the room, landing on each guest in turn. If one person, just one, dared to treat Lena like a human, I wouldn't have to stand here. I hope one day you all know what it feels like to be made small, invisible, and unimportant. Lena's eyes lifted at the far end wide, trembling, stunned. Alex crossed the marble floor, past the wreaths of golden roses, and knelt before her. "You didn't ruin this wedding. She told me not to say anything." Lena's voice was no louder than a whisper. "From now on, you are my daughter. Anyone who says otherwise, I'll show them how wrong they are." He lifted Lena, chair and all, turned to face the crowd one last time. "This wedding is over. Right now." And he walked out of the hall in absolute silence, leaving behind a 1,000-pound wedding cake untouched, a mute band, and a bride standing alone under lights, meant to shine on true love, the kind she had never known. The charcoal-colored Bentley glided smoothly along the tree-lined road leading out of central London. A drizzle tapped against the windows, the glow of the streetlights streaking across the glass like a stream of disturbed memories. Alexander Kane sat in the back seat, still holding Lena in his arms, the small folded wheelchair resting beside them. The girl leaned her head against his shoulder, too afraid to ask anything, only clutching the crumpled hem of her dress in silence. "Are we in trouble?" Lena's voice trembled, caught between fear and expectation. Alex looked down at her, the corners of his eyes still carrying traces of the fury from the reception. "No, Lena. We're free now." The girl blinked, puzzled. "But the wedding?" "There is no wedding if it means I have to pretend you don't exist." The answer drew a hush over the car. For the first time in a long while, Alex leaned back in his seat, breathing like a heavy stone had been lifted from his chest. The Oxfordshire estate. The wrought iron gates swung open, and the Bentley rolled onto a cobblestone drive flanked by perfectly trimmed rows of yew trees. A stately limestone manor stood at the end, its moss-covered roof and thick ivy-draped walls glowing warmly from the golden light within. Unlike the places Lena had known before, built of glass and cold steel, this place breathed. Alex carried Lena up the wooden steps. The door opened to the scent of oak and a faint trace of baked goods. Bradley, the aging butler who had served Alex for over 20 years, stepped forward, his tired eyes widening at the sight of the girl. "This is my daughter. Prepare the green room." Bradley gave a slight bow, asking no further questions. A space of truth. Alex set Lena down in a velvet-upholstered armchair in the living room. The walls were lined with shelves of books, oil paintings of the Cotswolds countryside, and a grand piano half covered with a lace runner. "What do you want now?" Alex asked. Lena shrugged lightly. "I don't know. In the places I stayed before, I just stayed quiet." Alex stepped closer and knelt to meet her eyes. "Here, you don't have to be quiet. This is your home. Every room, every corner of the garden, every song on the piano has your name on it." Lena glanced around, as though still doubting his words. She bit her lip, then let out something she had kept hidden. "I want to go to school. A real school. With friends." Alex smiled, one of the rare smiles that night. "Then we'll find a place worthy of you. No one will ever have the right to overlook you again." The first night, the green room smelled faintly of lavender. The sheets were crisp white, the window frame looking out over a rose garden still jeweled with dew. On the small bedside table lay a worn sketchbook, some pages in the middle still stained with wax crayons. Lena ran her hand gently over the cover, her eyes drifting to the little easel in the corner. After a long pause, she whispered to herself, "Maybe this is home." Out in the hallway, Alex stood silently, listening to her words. For the first time in years, the warmth in his chest came not from victory or a business deal, but from the feeling of having brought someone back to where they truly belonged. Morning in Oxfordshire unfolded in a thin veil of mist, with dew clinging to each rose petal like crystals not yet melted. Alexander Kane sat at his walnut desk, phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and decisive. "Clara Whitmore, this is Kane. I want to speak with you directly about a prospective student." On the other end, the voice of the headmistress of Kensington Academy, the most prestigious school in London, remained professionally calm, yet there was a slight hesitation at the sound of the name Kane. "You know, our waiting list, that's irrelevant. I'm not paying to push anyone's name to the top. I want you to meet the girl, look into her eyes, and decide for yourself." After a brief pause, Clara agreed. The meeting at the estate. That afternoon, a silver Jaguar stopped at the gates. Clara Whitmore stepped out, wearing a perfectly tailored cream suit, every gesture exuding British poise. Lena sat in the living room, a sketchbook resting on her lap, her small hands turning a colored pencil. Alex stood behind her chair like a silent fortress. "Hello, Lena." Clara smiled, sitting across from her and lowering her voice to meet the girl's gaze. "Can you tell me why you want to attend Kensington?" Lena hesitated, then spoke softly but clearly. "I want to learn, to draw more, and to have a friend." Clara raised an eyebrow. "Is that all? And so I don't have to sit alone anymore?" Lena lowered her head, her fingers tightening on the edge of the sketchbook. The words weighed down the air in the room. Alex said nothing, but his eyes stayed fixed on Clara, as if to remind her, "Listen closely." An unexpected result. The conversation lasted 15 minutes. Lena talked about the detective picture books she wrote herself, about Skyra, a young superhero who flew on wheels. She flipped open her sketchbook to show Clara a drawing of Skyra rescuing a child from a crowd that had turned its back. Clara closed the book and turned to Alex. "She's truly extraordinary." Alex nodded. "I know." Clara smiled at Lena. "We'll try one term. See if Kensington feels like home to you." Lena's eyes widened. "Like a door?" "Like a door," Clara confirmed. The first day. On Monday morning, the Bentley carried Lena to Kensington's gates. The school rose like an ancient castle, pale stone walls, towering glass windows, and expansive lawns dotted with groups of students in navy uniforms. Lena wore a soft yellow hoodie, neat jeans, and white sneakers. Alex had told her, "Wear what makes you feel strong." As she rolled across the courtyard, a gentle voice called out, "Hi, I'm Freya. Your chair. It's lovely. Want to sit next to me in art class?" Lena hesitated, then glanced back toward the gate. Alex had already driven away, but his smile stayed with her. "Yeah, I'd like that," Lena said, and she passed through a door for the first time without looking back. On Friday afternoon, gray clouds stretched across the London sky, promising a cold rain. Lena returned to the Kane estate with faint watercolor smudges still on her hands from art class. Alex was standing in his study, eyes fixed on the flat-screen television mounted on the wall. On the live news broadcast, Victoria, the woman once his bride, sat upright in the studio, dressed in cream white, her makeup flawless. Her voice was soft, yet each word fell like the edge of a blade. "Alexander truly has a good heart, but that girl? She's just a charity project to polish his image. I don't think he'll keep her for long." The reporter asked, "You mean Lena?" Victoria pressed her lips together. "Yes, she's not his biological child, just a nice photo for the media." Lena froze at the doorway, clutching the strap of her backpack so tightly that her nails dug into her skin. Alex immediately switched off the television and turned to her. "Don't let those words touch you." "But what if they believe her?" Lena asked quietly. Alex sat down so their eyes met, his voice low but unwavering. "Then we'll make them see the truth. Not through my words, but through yours." The first camera. That same evening, Alex brought a compact camera, a tripod, and a clip-on microphone to Lena's room. "You once said you wanted to draw so people would notice what they ignore. Now, tell them. Let them hear it from you." Lena stayed silent for a few seconds. Then she straightened her posture, placed her sketchbook beside her, and pressed the rec button. The desk lamp lit her sun-kissed face, her dark eyes deep and steady. "Hi, my name is Lena. I use a wheelchair, and I'm not here to inspire you. I'm here to make you see." She paused, inhaling deeply. "See what people overlook, see what can happen, and see that different does not mean less." The ripple effect. Alex uploaded the video to YouTube titled "Lena Unseen, No Longer Invisible." At first, it drew only a few dozen views. But overnight, the numbers leapt into the tens of thousands. Comments poured in like rain. "I showed this to my daughter, and she cried. My child uses a wheelchair too. She said, 'That's just like me.' This isn't inspiration. This is the truth." Lena read each line, sometimes laughing, sitting in long silence. The moment Alex realized. That night, Alex stood in the doorway of her room, watching Lena sit before her laptop, her face glowing in the screen's light. She spoke softly, almost to herself. "Someone sees me now." Alex was still. From that moment on, he knew the story was no longer confined within the stone walls of this estate. It had begun to travel beyond London, beyond England, and no one, not even Victoria, could stop it anymore. A light spring rain blurred the windows of Kensington Academy's art room. Inside, Lena was finishing an oil painting, a girl in a wheelchair wearing a red cape, her wheels glowing like wings. She named the character Skyra. During recess, 3 older students walked in, their eyes half curious, half mocking. One boy smirked. "Hey, your videos online are pretty popular. But that's probably because you're in a wheelchair, right?" The air tightened. Lena lifted her head, her dark eyes flashing like blades. "I'm popular because I speak the truth. What about you? Do you dare to?" He fell silent. The class turned to look at Lena, and something shifted in that moment. She was no longer the girl in the corner. An unexpected invitation. That afternoon, Alex received a call from the National Youth Forum to be held in Manchester. "We'd like Lena to speak." The topic: presence and the right to be seen. Alex brought the invitation to Lena. She stayed quiet for a few seconds, then nodded. "If I speak, I'll speak for the kids no one ever asks. Are you sitting here alone?" A speech that shook the room. On the forum day, Lena wore a navy blazer and white sneakers and rolled her wheelchair to the center of the wide stage. Hundreds of eyes fixed on her, Her voice rang out, steady and clear. Once, at a wedding, they left me sitting alone like a decoration. Only one person asked, "Why is she sitting alone?" That question changed my life, because it told me I deserved to be seen. The room was silent for a few seconds. Then the applause rolled in like waves. Ellie Rowan's gift. A week later, Alex took Lena to the workshop of Ellie Rowan, an engineer specializing in assistive technology. In the corner, beneath a silver tarp, was something Lena had never seen before. A high-speed wheelchair, a lightweight alloy frame, shock-absorbing wheels, and a control stick shaped like a paintbrush. On the side, engraved in silver, Skyra. "We were inspired by the character you drew," Ellie said with a smile. Lena touched the frame, her eyes shimmering. "No, this is the real Skyra, the birth of a movement." The next day, Alex announced Project Skyra, an initiative to produce innovative wheelchairs and improve learning and art spaces for disabled children across Europe. The media exploded. The hashtag Skyra Project flooded social networks. Schools, nonprofits, and parents from Norway, Italy, and Spain sent letters asking to join. From a single video, Lena had become the spark leading the way, and Alex knew this was only the beginning. June sunlight bathed Oxfordshire in gold, but in Alexander Kane's study, the air was thick, as if a storm were about to break. Alex sat behind his walnut desk, slowly turning a faded yellow envelope over in his hands. Bradley, the butler, placed it down and spoke softly. "A retired soldier called this morning. Said he was a comrade of Lena's mother. And he had this." Alex drew out a sheet of paper, an old blurred photograph. In it, a black woman in military uniform, her right arm wrapped in bandages, stood beside a younger man whose stern gaze carried pride. On the back, in shaky handwriting, "Amara Kane, 2007. Lena stood beside him, gripping the arm of the chair. "That's my mother?" Alex nodded slightly. "Sergeant Amara Kane, Army medic, went missing during a mission in West Africa. Everyone believed she didn't make it. But if this picture exists, it means she might still be alive." Lena's voice trembled, caught between fear and hope. A new destination. Alex and Lena boarded a flight from Heathrow to Freetown, Sierra Leone, a week later. With them was Major Rafe Donovan, the soldier who had called Alex. Throughout the journey, Rafe shared scattered fragments about Amara. She saved 3 men during an ambush, badly injured, but refused evacuation until she bandaged the others, then vanished in the chaos. Lena listened, pride and anguish twining in her chest. The village in the forest. After 2 days of traveling in an off-road vehicle, they arrived at a small village along the Moa River. Children ran alongside the car, laughing, red dust clinging to the wheels of Lena's chair. Miriam, a local nurse, recognized the photograph immediately. "She's here. Doesn't speak her name. Doesn't tell her past. Just helps us heal the sick and deliver babies. But these last weeks, her health's been failing." She led them to a thatched roof house. The meeting. In the dim room, golden light filtering through a thin curtain. A woman sat before an easel, her curly hair streaked with silver, her right arm gone from the shoulder. On the canvas, a half-finished painting of a girl in a wheelchair surrounded by a sea of red flowers. She looked up. Deep brown eyes met Lena's, and in an instant, the world collapsed into a single heartbeat. "Lena." Her voice was hoarse, trembling, as if she hadn't spoken that name in years. Tears welled in Lena's eyes. "Mom." Amara laughed through a sob, covering her mouth with her remaining hand. "I thought you were only a dream." Alex's hand clenched from the doorway, his breath deep as if holding himself together. 2 weeks' stay. Alex decided they would remain in the village. Every day, Lena sat with Amara beneath the shade of a mango tree, listening as her mother pieced together her memories, the sound of helicopters, the scent of smoke, the faces of comrades, and the image of a newborn girl cradled in her arms amid the fire. Amara painted more, though her hand shook. One afternoon, she handed Lena a rolled canvas tied with twine. "When I'm gone, open this. Inside is..." the missing part of the story. Lena hugged the roll tightly. She didn't promise to wait, but didn't open it either. She knew this moment mattered more than any secret, because it was the present, the thing they had been robbed of for far too long. Night in the riverside village along the Moa was calm, broken only by the chirring of insects and the soft lap of water against the bank. Alexander Kane sat on the porch, a steaming cup of ginger tea in hand, but his eyes never left the darkness beyond. A heavy instinct had been pressing on him since finding Amara they were being watched. Rafe's warning. Major Rafe Donovan emerged from the shadows, his face tense. Alex, there's something you need to know. He handed Alex a printed image from a satellite phone. It showed Amara in front of the thatched hut, Lena beside her, captured from a long distance. In the photo's corner, a man's shadow slipped into the brush. This photo came through a comms channel I used in the army. The sender isn't an ally. They know she's alive and waiting for the right moment. Alex's brow furrowed. Who? Rafe's voice dropped. The people Amara once tried to expose. A trafficking ring tied to mercenaries and officials. They don't just want her dead, they want to erase every piece of evidence and erase the memories of everyone who knows the truth. Gunfire in the night. Around midnight, the sound of unfamiliar engines rumbled up the dirt road toward the village. Rafe snapped his sidearm from his belt, signaling Alex to stay quiet. The door burst open. Miriam, the village nurse, rushed in, breathless. Strange vehicles are coming. They're not ours. Alex scooped Lena into his arms and signaled to Amara. We leave. Now. To the river. They barely took a step before gunfire shattered the night. The window glass exploded, shards spraying across the floor. Rafe answered with 2 precise shots, taking down a man closing in from the rear. Lena clung to Alex in panic. They're here for Mom? No, Lena. They're here for what your mom knows. And we're not letting them take it. The escape. Rafe led the way through pitch-black forest paths, their feet crunching over dry leaves. Alex pushed Amara's wheelchair so fast that the wheels flung up clods of red earth. Behind them, headlights swept through the treetops, the grind of tires on dirt closing in. A bullet hissed past, splintering the trunk ahead, wood shards flying like sparks. Rafe shouted, Move! The boat's waiting at the bend. They scrambled to the water's edge, where a small motorboat was already idling. Alex lifted Lena and Amara aboard. Rafe jumped in after, and the moment they surged into the river, a volley of gunfire erupted behind them, muzzle flashes strobing across the water's black surface. A fragile safe haven. They landed at a small outpost belonging to one of Rafe's old friends on the outskirts of Freetown. Amara was exhausted, her shoulder wound seeping blood. Lena held her mother's hand tightly, tears slipping down without a sound. Alex looked at Rafe. They won't stop, will they? Rafe shook his head. Number. Not until Amara is dead, or the truth is out. Alex turned to Lena, his voice low but steady. We're choosing the second option. Dawn had barely broken over the Freetown coastline, but inside the temporary safe house, Alexander Kane stood at a wooden table covered with files, maps, and portable hard drives. Rafe Donovan slid a small, aluminum-encased USB toward him. This is what Amara kept before she disappeared. Transaction records, photos, videos, everything that proves Dominic Thorne and his trafficking network. Alex tightened his grip on the USB. Dominic Thorne, billionaire businessman, media darling philanthropist, and the man who bankrolled the mercenaries hunting Amara. A bold plan. Alex turned to Amara. We can't just hand this to the police. He's bought the courts here. The only way is to ensure the whole world sees it. Rafe added, There's a human rights summit in Geneva next week. Global live broadcast. If we drop the evidence there, he can't silence the entire planet. Amara gave a faint nod, determination glinting in her eyes. Lena, you'll come too. I want the world to see you as a living witness. Lena hesitated, fear flickering in her gaze, but she nodded when she met Alex's eyes. I'll speak. Geneva. A global stage. On the day of the summit, the main hall of the United Nations gleamed under bright lights. Flags of member nations lined the walls. Television cameras swept across rows of delegates, journalists, and millions watching worldwide. Dominic Thorne stood at the podium, clad in a navy suit, his voice smooth and rehearsed. We must protect the most vulnerable among us. The chamber doors swung open. Alex, Amara, and Lena stepped in, carrying a secure case with Rafe following close behind. Murmurs rippled through the room. Dominic faltered for half a second before forcing his smile to remain. Alex strode to the microphone. Apologies, but today, the truth is the one who will speak. The evidence breaks. Rafe opened the case and plugged the USB into the projection system. The massive screen behind Dominic shifted to a series of videos, secret warehouses, lists of names, email chains, images of Dominic signing contracts with mercenary groups. The hall plunged into dead silence. A few journalists immediately raised their cameras, live streaming every second. Amara stepped forward, her voice steady but weighted with years of silence. I am Sergeant Amara Kane. I survived to tell you. This is not just crime, it's a war on those who cannot defend themselves. Lena rolled forward, placing her small hand on the microphone. And I am proof that these people should never be forgotten. None of us should ever be invisible. The chain reaction. Within hours, the story swept across the globe. Allied governments demanded an international investigation. Thorn Group stock plunged. The media dug deeper, uncovering more victims and witnesses. Under the flashing lights of hundreds of press cameras, Dominic Thorne was taken into custody right there in Geneva. As he was handcuffed, Alex locked eyes with him, saying nothing but delivering in one look the ending to a hunt that had lasted over a decade. After the summit, Geneva was left with cobblestone streets still damp from the rain. Alexander Kane stood by the hotel window, looking down at the square where, just yesterday, thousands had gathered to celebrate the arrest of Dominic Thorne. Today, the atmosphere was different, quiet, heavy. The first cracks. Alex's phone rang incessantly interview requests, partnership offers, and anonymous threats. Rafe Donovan sat in the corner, cleaning his gun as he spoke quietly. You know, Thorne never played alone. There are still people who benefit from his silence. At the dining table, Lena scrolled through hundreds of comments about her speech. Some were full of love, but others dripped with venom. She's just exploiting her mother's story. Cheap, emotional theater. She set the phone down, lips pressed tight. Alex walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. You told the truth. The rest is just noise. Amara and the weight of memory. Amara sat before her easel in the next room, unable to put down a single brushstroke. After decades of silence, telling her story to millions felt like tearing open a wound that had never healed. Alex, what if I don't go back to England? What if I stay in Africa? She asked, her eyes fixed on the empty canvas. If that's what you want, I won't stop you. But Lena needs you. Not as a witness, as a mother. Amara said nothing. Her gaze drifted to a photograph of Lena laughing beside Skyra, her hands trembling slightly. Returned to London. A week later, the charcoal Bentley rolled through the gates of the Oxfordshire estate. Paparazzi crowded both sides, camera flashes bursting like lightning. Alex drove straight into the courtyard, closing the gates to shut out the world. Bradley, the butler, greeted them with hot tea for Amara and a cup of cocoa for Lena. No one spoke about the press, the headlines, or Dominic Thorne. In the green room, Lena unrolled the canvas her mother had given her in Sierra Leone. Inside was a sketch. A girl in a wheelchair holding hands with a man in a suit, both looking toward the horizon. In the corner, handwritten words. Find and hold on to each other. A.K. A new promise. That evening, as rain pattered on the glass roof of the garden room, Alex spoke to Lena and Amara. We've destroyed one criminal network, but there are still hundreds of children out there who haven't been seen. We'll keep going not for revenge, but for this promise. Lena gripped her mother's hand. Amara nodded. And in that moment, all three knew they were no longer just people bound by circumstance. They were a family. A year after Geneva, the London sky stretched in a rare expanse of blue. Kensington Academy was livelier than usual. The school grounds were strung with blue and yellow ribbons, interwoven with Skyra paintings created by students across Europe. Skyra Day. On the stage in the middle of the lawn, Lena sat in the row of honored guests, wearing a simple navy dress and white sneakers. Beside her, Amara Kane wore a floor-length jade-green gown, her silver curls adorned with a single white rose. Alexander Kane stepped to the podium, microphone in hand. Skyra is not just a character from Lena's drawing. Skyra symbolizes that no one should be forced to sit alone, that everyone deserves to be seen and heard. Today, the Skyra Foundation expands to 18 countries, providing equipment, scholarships, and creative spaces for thousands of disabled children. Applause rolled over the crowd like waves. Lena's moment. Alex stepped back and handed the microphone to Lena. She looked out over the rows of students in front, colorful wheelchairs, crutches painted with flowers, and classmates without disabilities who had come to show support. When I was little, I thought I was the only one who was invisible, but it turns out, so many people are overlooked. Skyra isn't just me. Skyra is all of us, when we truly choose to see each other. Another round of applause erupted, this time with cheers woven in, a signal from afar. As the festival ended, Alex was handed a sealed envelope. Inside was a photograph of a group of children in a Southeast Asian village, with a charcoal drawing of Skyra on the wall behind them. Beneath it, a single line. "They need you too." Alex glanced at Lena. She had already seen the photo, her eyes shining. "We're going, aren't we?" Alex smiled. "We'll always go." An open ending. In the late afternoon, the three of them, Alex, Amara, Lena, sat on the porch of the Oxfordshire estate. The golden light of sunset washed over the stone walls and rose gardens. In the distance, the wind carried the laughter of children from the far end of the garden, where a group of new students were practicing drawing Skyra. Lena rested her head on her mother's shoulder, whispering, "I think Skyra will never end." Alex looked toward the horizon, his voice steady. "Number, because Skyra is something we carry wherever we go." The imaginary camera pulled back, taking in the golden glow of the estate, the laughter, and the Skyra paintings fluttering in the breeze, leaving behind the promise that this story would continue, somewhere, with new people to carry it forward.